Youorns. Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the youorns 10-minute take on Watford 1, Sheffield Wednesday 0. Yesterday at the Vic, Watford struggled in this game. They played poorly in this game. They were awful in this game for the most part. Sheffield Wednesday, bottom of the championship, without a win all season long in the division. And they were much the better team through much of the game. And you would have thought that Watford would have lost this game. In fact, just a few weeks ago, they would have lost this game just before the All-Star break, the international break. I have to get my sports correct. Watford would have lost this game. Thankfully, they did not. And the thing about this game that does please me is that Watford found a way. There are going to be games this season where Watford Football Club, the club that you and I love passionately with all our heart and soul, are going to be like this. Now, we've seen a lot of those games and a lot of those days over the last few seasons, and we looked like we were going in the same direction yesterday. Very much so. Watford didn't have a clue out there. They didn't seem to have any desire to win this game. And it was the very key moments of the game, the substitutions in this game, that made the big difference. Val Ismail got the job done with his substitutions because the starting lineup didn't have the spark after the first 5 minutes were over. They did not have an idea of where they wanted to be, who they wanted to be, and what they wanted to accomplish. They were hoping that Sheffield Wednesday would just turn over, roll over, get their tummies tickled, and job done. But that's not how the championship goes. Watford know that by now. This men's first team has had plenty of experience in the championship, and these players know the championship pretty darn well. And they know good and well that you cannot allow or rely upon Sheffield Wednesday or any other club in the division just rolling over for you, because the quote-unquote pundits or the quote-unquote expectations or the quote-unquote league table position dictates that your opposition should just roll over and get their tummies tickled. You have to go out there and put out a performance and put out a mission statement with your play, with your style of play, and with your intent on the pitch. Watford didn't do that for the vast majority of the game yesterday, and because Val Ismail made two really good substitutions, bringing Ken Sema in to start the second half, taking off TDB and bringing on Kone in that second half, and bringing on Asprilla, those three substitutions were the biggest part of this game for Watford. Now, in the first half, the first few minutes of the half, Watford did have electricity, but that died out real fast. Martins and Ngakia were, I think, the standout players in the first half of the game, but still they did not put enough in for the rest of the team. And that it's not their fault. It was just that the rest of the team didn't catch on to the energy that Ngakia and Martins were bringing on the left and the right side. Martins does what he does well, and Ngakia, who I think has improved the last couple of games, put in a really good cross in the first half that went right across goal. Bio just couldn't stretch his toe out any further to tap it home. That would have been 1-0 Watford in the first half. But Wednesday were the team that were more dogged, more resilient. They grew into the game. They got more confidence as Watford petered out in the first half. And it was Wednesday who looked like the team that was going to grab the lead. In fact, they should have had the lead in the first half. A penalty was given. And look, to me, it was a penalty. Soft, but look, soft, cold, hard, slow, hot. It doesn't matter. It was a pen. It was a stamp of the foot by Jamal Lewis for Watford that absolutely, I think it was in the first half of the game. Could have been first half, could have been second. I don't remember when the penalty shout was. But that brought down, rather theatrically, the Sheffield Wednesday player. It was enough to bring him down. It was in the box. That's a penalty. Linesman overturned it, overruling the ref. And that's a big thing you do not see in championship football very much, because there's no VAR there. And usually when that penalty is given by the ref in the championship, that is it, whether it's a pen or not. Done deal. But the linesman overturned it. Very rare that that's done. Shout to the linesman. Good job by him, because you do not see that very often. And Watford were very, very fortunate not to have conceded the penalty there. And so that, to me, was really the impetus. And I believe it might have been the second half that penalty shout was. And then, but Watford should have gone on from there and kicked on, but they didn't. Sheffield Wednesday were more energized. They come out with more purpose. They come out looking very good in that second half, Sheffield Wednesday. And I think they were very unlucky not to have scored. In fact, they had a chance in the first half as well. Windass hit a shot, had a header. He put it just over the bar, and he should have scored. So, look, the bottom line is Wednesday were the busier side, the more inventive side. They just did not finish off their chances. They were much more likely to score in the game. And Watford continued to make the mistakes and the problematic things that we've seen this season and we've seen over previous seasons. The lack of discipline. Again, Ryan Porteous this time, right before the half, in the first half, right before the halftime whistle, he commits a really silly, reckless lunging challenge at a Wednesday player, which he really shouldn't have done it at all. And, it was maybe a midfield area or in the early, the top, in the barely into their half of the pitch. And it was just a really silly challenge, and it was not necessary at all. Right before the half, yellow card, his 5th yellow of the season. So that's yellow card accumulation, which means now that Ryan Porteous misses the game on Tuesday at Swansea. Silly, silly yellow card. And again, it's the lack of discipline I've talked about all season, where we do not have the sense of discipline and game management a lot of the times that is required. That was a big problem again yesterday as Watford. I thought just, that particular moment from Porteous was not warranted in the game and in the flow of the game there when you're trying to get to halftime. Luckily, nothing came of it. But something really did come of it, as I said, because Porteous now misses Tuesday's game. And again, silly things like that hurt you and hurt the team at large can affect the way a team builds confidence, can affect the continuity of a team if you're always chopping and changing, if you're always without a player here, always without a player there, not due to injury, mind you, but due to silly things like this, lack of discipline. Ryan Andrews, the other Ryan, has also now got this 4-game ban because, again, there was a 1-game extension of that ban due to an FA disciplinary proceeding that happened where Ryan Andrews accepted the punishment for that. There were some comments made at the referee or the linesman. That was an extra game on top of the straight red. So Ryan Andrews misses 4 games now because of all this. And so lack of discipline is still a key problem in this team. And Imran Loser, to me, was not very good yesterday at all. He continues his poor performances. I don't think he cares anymore. I don't think he's cared for this whole season now. He was very good in the first game, was very good against Plymouth, but I just don't think he's been good enough the rest of the way. And I think he is, with his discipline problems as well, I think he's tanked it now. And I want to see Imran Loser be the Imran Loser that we've been seeing here for a season or so prior to this season, because he just ain't it right now. But I want to get back to the positives and how Watford manifested a victory here, because after those subs in the second half, Watford looked very much a stronger, more energetic side. Georgie came in, gave you some movement. He was moving all over the pitch. Kone gave you movement. His movement and his passing, I thought, were very effective in the game, made much more of a midfield flow. The midfield was much more, had much more continuity to it under Kone, although he would drift in narrow. And I thought that wasn't necessarily what you want to do, because I think the midfield needs to open up and be more expansive. And I think the problem in the first half is our midfield was not open and expansive enough and imaginative enough to get the play flowing the way that we need to get it flowing. But Kone, with his passing, opened up some spaces, even though he did come in narrow, and he did create movement in that midfield. It was not static like it was in the first half. And because of that, I thought that would open the gates for Watford to begin to build more energy. Georgie, as well as I said, more energy. And then Asprilla came in around the 77th, 78th minute mark, and you had a feeling that Asprilla could be the match winner here. Asprilla, in his 50th appearance for Watford, had not yet scored for the Hornets, but he took an individual moment of quality and made it count. And this is what Asprilla has in his locker. That individual moment of quality, that really good pass, that really good cross, which he did, I think, a few days ago when Watford did get a win, I think, against Birmingham. He supplied a really good cross. Or maybe against West Brom had a really good cross that led to an assist for a goal. But Asprilla, he has that in his locker, and he's much more effective coming off the bench than he is starting. He has had a start where he was actually quite good this season, but Asprilla really did get this game, and he read the game well. He ran in off the channels, and his goal was sublime in the 82nd minute, where he cut in from his right-hand side, and his left-footed player, and he got to the midpoint along the top of the 18-yard box and just turned and corkscrewed in a really good shot with his left foot past the diving goalkeeper to the left of the goalkeeper in the bottom right-hand corner of the net. That was game over. Watford up 1-0, and a great goal to celebrate his 50th appearance, Yasser Asprilla, in a game that was really dreary, a game that was dreary from a Watford perspective. The fans did not like the first half, and I can't blame them for booing at all. I would have booed if I were there at the Vic. It was a poorly played game from a Watford perspective. They were not sharp in this game. They didn't trouble the goalkeeper in this game. Wednesday just grew in confidence, but Watford were able to find a way. And you're going to have championship games like this. They're going to be games, and I've said this before here and on the podcast, which you can listen to on Apple, Google, Spotify, and numerous other places, the youorns podcast. And I've said on there as well as here, that they're going to be games where Watford do everything but score and end up getting a point or losing. And they're also going to be games like this, where Watford are poor, terrible, but they find a way to win. And in fact, I remember saying this, I think, at the time when we played Plymouth earlier this season, where Watford, we just battered Plymouth, but just could not score against them. It was 0-0. And I think I remember saying at the time, it may have been around that game or just after, that there's going to be moments like this where Watford are going to play really well and do everything but score. And then they're going to be games like the game that happened yesterday at the Vic, where Watford are going to play very poorly, are not going to trouble the goalkeeper, but there's going to be one moment where they find a way to win the game. That happens in the championship to every team. It happens at least once or twice a season, if you're lucky. And Watford, it happened for them yesterday, which is a really important win for this team, for this men's first team, this club. The men's first team here, who had struggled in these first 12 games, have been very up and down, trying to find their way. Val building an identity for this team. And you're beginning to see a sense of what Val wants. The players now have to continue to get accustomed to it. I think they are becoming a bit more comfortable. The fact now is they've had 2 games in a row without defeat, which is good, something to build off of. A clean sheet yesterday, which is good, something to build off of. And the good thing also here is that they're going to play better than this on Tuesday night against Swansea. So to win a game where you play poorly, the big picture is 3 points in the bag, a rise up the league table, and after 12 games, you're just roughly a quarter of the way through the season, just over a quarter of the way through the season, or just about a quarter of the way through the season. You play 46 championship games, so you're just over a quarter of the way through your season, and you're at 13 points, right? You multiply that by 4, you know what you get at 72 points. You are going to be in that top half if we're going to look at it that way. So we look at these things in phases. I'm not going to really talk too much about the league table position per se until we get to the halfway point of the season, because I think that will give us a fair example or fair analysis and assessment of where this Watford men's first team are going to be at the end of the season. And I've said that we don't really want to be talking about a relegation scrap. I know there have been stories about it. There have been social media chatter amongst some of us as Watford supporters about whether or not this is a relegation scrap for Watford. That was the question that was being floated after the Cardiff game and after the games that Watford had lost, I think 3 in a row. That was the worry. But I had said at that time that I think it's too early to start talking about that. Wait till we get to the midpoint, maybe 20 games in, 23 games in, around that mark, 20 to 23 games in, then we can assess Watford's position, which would be around Christmas time, there or thereabouts. or just before Christmas time. Let's get to Christmas and then make an assessment. But I do not think, and I said it at that time a couple of weeks back or so, I do not think Watford are in a relegation scrap, and I don't think they're going to be in one this season. I think that what Val has done has got these players playing the kind of football he wants. What we need to see now is consistency. What we obviously need to see is a better performance off the back of what we saw yesterday. And what we also need to see is an improvement in the discipline of these men's first team players, because the discipline has not been good this season for the most part. We've got players who you think would be leaders out there, but they are not leading when they do silly things the way Ryan Porteous did, the way Ryan Andrews did. And I understand if you're in the heat of the moment, things happen, but you've got to stay switched on in these games. And the heat of the moment does not justify rash challenges like the one Porteous made, rash challenges like the one Ryan Andrews made a few weeks ago, rash decisions like the ones that Sierralta made a few weeks ago with a yellow card here and a yellow card there. It's a whole yellow card disco for us, because we have to now stay focused and start to look at the way we discipline ourselves in these games. But look, overall, this is a good Watford win considering the terrible performance. I'm never going to sit here and defend a performance like the one that Watford had yesterday, but I will be happy all day long about the result. 3 points, which is all you care about, I think. I mean, I care about the performance actually a lot more, but in terms of the way that Watford carried themselves yesterday, the thing that pleases me is that there was a player who took it on himself and took the initiative on and had an individual moment of quality that got us over the line against a dogged Wednesday side. And if you look back at Watford versus Sheffield Wednesday at the Vic in many years past and in recent years, the scoreline of 1-0 has been a very common theme, 1-0 for Watford. It happened a few seasons ago, back in 2021, when Watford were on their way to promotion. It was a Good Friday game at the Vic. Watford won that 1-0. And I remember a game 40 plus years ago that I went to at the Vic, when the Vicarage Road terraces were still available, and I loved those terraces from back then. And I was there watching John Barnes against Sheffield Wednesday. It was a fairly dreary affair. Watford were performing a whole lot better than they performed yesterday against Sheffield Wednesday, but against Wednesday back in the early 1980s, John Barnes found an individual moment of quality to beat Wednesday. And like that moment of many years ago, Asprilla found the very same moment to unlock a game that needed a quality strike to decide and separate the sides. And thankfully, Watford got that job done. So 3 points. Performance has got to be much better than this. You can't have a performance like this and get away with it. You got away with it against the bottom side, but it doesn't matter who you're playing. You can't play like this and expect to win every week. You can't. And you'll get found out by a lot of clubs in the championship this season if you perform like this again. So let this performance be dead and buried and put in the dustbins of history. But let us also remember that there were players yesterday. Ken Sema, particularly, I thought was excellent. Kone was very good, and Asprilla was very good. Those players took the initiative on where Watford lacked it for much of this game. And so for me, the youorns man of the match is Ken Sema for his electric difference. He made a lot of difference in this game. His persistence and endeavor eventually rubbed off on the rest of the lads. And then it was brought to fruition when Asprilla came in there and produced a brilliant moment as a result of all of that. So that is the thing you can be proud of. Watford now don't have too much time to get too high about this victory, because they've now got to head to South Wales on Tuesday against Swansea City. Watford now have to build on this. 2 games unbeaten. They didn't play well, but as I said, I think they'll play a lot better against Swansea, and hopefully we can actually get something from that game. Swansea also are a team that has had its ups and downs this season. This has been the youorns 10-minute take.